This is Neil King for Random Acts of Cartooning, and I'm at the Fan Expo in Philadelphia, and I'm doing sketches. But first... Okay, everyone, so the influence for this episode is Rough Justice, and this is one of the many Alex Ross books that he puts out. I have so many different things of his. But it's just great, and he's such an amazing technician of an illustrator. And if you've seen any of his work, he just does an unbelievable amount of work, and everything that I've ever seen of his, he just does all styles really well. But this was kind of a nice book because there's a lot of pencil, a lot of thought going on in some of these things, the sketch parts to some of his finishes. And, all of his work is really dramatic, but he'll even do different styles just to try different things out. I've seen things of his that look like Bruce Timm, but he just really is this great technician and a great designer of space and of all those types of books that he's done. He does so many different types of media that he's just really great at it, and he's technically he's been around now for a little while. And everything that I see of his, I'm just always in awe of the technical prowess, like making things like this background simple enough that it's not overtaking this, but it's such a dramatic look, and his feel for different characters. And he does a lot of these foreshortening poses, but they're really the best thing for a lot of the, whether it's a poster or whether it's a cover. And if you can control that, you can do a lot of things. So there's a lot going on in this book. There's a lot of character study going on in this book. Younger people, older people, variations of the characters. He thinks about how they all would work, their costumes. There's just so much here. And I look at them periodically just to remind myself, like, if you're going to do something the right way, to really explore it, you would go and you would do all of these studies that he does. And they're just spectacular work. Whether it's some of the things that they would be using, like within whatever the heroes are. And he's just always thinking about it. He's always doing some type of a thought behind, whether it's a Batmobile or some type of thing that we just get used to seeing. And when you see a character that's been thought through, it's just a great thing to see. For anybody who studies figures or just animation or character development, like, he's the top of the line. And I just love all the stuff he does. So if you haven't gotten this one, Rough Justice, it's really great. Beautiful. Okay, so here I am at the Fan Expo, and there was a really nice turnout for the entire weekend. It was a 3-day event. So I just have a table, and I do all kinds of commissions. So one of the favorite things I have to draw are Muppets, and especially like a Kermit the Frog. And I usually put them in some type of comic book character. Sometimes it'll be a sci-fi thing too. I put him in Star Wars stuff. I've done all that stuff. So I thought I would do in the book a piece with him as the Punisher. So I have done this kind of a sketch before, and it's fun to do. So I think it's always interesting to take two different kind of genres and put them together. So as always, I just kind of start off with my shapes. And I move through this stuff pretty quickly. I've done so many images like this when you're just in there having fun with the whole thing. You just want to make sure that my version of Kermit the Frog is enough like the one, because there's plenty of books that have been done with the characters, the Muppet characters. But I tend to try to make it look as much as kind of like you would recognize it right away, without having to be like that it looks completely exactly the same thing. Same idea with the Punisher. He usually just has that big skull on his chest, and as long as you have him kind of dressed in dark, really kind of a dark thing, and like I'll put a little belt on him, like with ammunition and stuff, and I usually have some kind of a silly little gun that Kermit would be holding. But the idea is to just try to get those major shapes in when you first start, and you just roll through this thing. So there's not a lot that has to be overthought here. And for me, what I'll do with this stuff is make sure that the line is super strong, so that when I put the color on with my watercolor, I can just kind of jump right in and do it. So I'm using a brush pen, Pentel brush pen, and I'm going in pretty quickly. Those eyes are the most important thing for Kermit, that stylized thing that they would have on the puppets, and that's how I would draw that thing out. Now for me, all these kind of things, you have to realize that when you're doing, or at least the way I do conventions, I draw all day. So that specific day that I was doing this, I probably drew for 9 hours straight. So when you're doing these kind of sketches and people come up and they ask you for all kinds of crazy things, you just have to realize that it is a sketch, and I cheat. I charge very little for my sketches when I'm sitting there. I want to be, really busy. I don't want to have to just sit there and wait for somebody to come for the sketches. So in front of me, I have my portfolio and have all the stuff there. And then so when I'm sitting drawing, people can, as they're walking past, they'll be able to see some of the things that I do. And I think that sells a lot of sketches for me, because people love to watch people draw. And anymore in a lot of the conventions, most people don't sit there and really draw. They have a lot of the stuff that they have is already been done, and they're just selling like a copy of each one. So what I'm doing here is I'm in the ink, and again, a lot of it's just gestural stuff. It doesn't have to be a very real kind of a gun, because who really cares? But just the fact that Kermit has the gun, you read it as a gun. And so I'm just kind of rolling through it. And I do think that with characters like this, that I really don't do a lot of super detail, because I don't feel like any of the images of them do that either. So for this, you just want to keep it nice and grainy, and just get those proportions out. You don't usually see a full figure of Kermit the Frog, especially because you're used to watching him as a puppet. But any of the images you have, that's that kind of proportion. It's like a 3-head tall character. It's kind of like a Charlie Brown kind of character. As long as you're doing that and not elongating him, I think he usually looks pretty good. So that's the ink part is pretty much finished with this. Little guns on his back, right? Stuff like that. Remember, everyone, I am a working cartoonist, so make sure that you're using the links to some of the different stuff that I am selling. These are convention sketches, and I will be doing, and I'm always doing conventions, so if you ever see me out there, or I also do commissions. But here's some of my adult books, graphic novels. I do kids stuff too. But take a look on my Amazon store, and these are all for sale. And like I say, I do a certain amount of commission work. So if you're interested in some of the things that I've been posting, it's all there. Support me. Like and subscribe, of course, as always. Okay, use my eraser. I got rid of all the pencil marks, and now I'm going in with the semi-moist watercolors, and I'm just pushing some color in there. I try, and most of the time when I'm doing kind of Muppets and stuff, they usually aren't like the darker kind of stuff. I tend to just draw them nice, and I won't put any black in the watercolors. Like I'll keep just the watercolors in themselves. Where with something like this, it's different. You know, its character's supposed to be darker. So anytime I have to do a black, like an outfit that's all black, pretty much, I'll put on the under part of it, whether it's going to be a warm color or a cool color. So if I want I want it to be a cool color, gray black, I'll put red underneath right away, and then I'll go on top with the black. And because Kermit's green, I'll put in his background a little red, a complementary color. And those colors always look great together. So you can see I'm just kind of blowing through this. And that's the beauty of a sketch, that if I overwork this thing, I don't think it winds up being half as much energy as like this. And every time I have people watching me doing these things, they're surprised at how quickly I kind of go in there. I am not trying to over render. And once I'm moving in there with a little of this black, you can see by having the red underneath, it just makes this like warm gray and black that I think has a little bit, it's a little bolder, and it's more interesting looking. If I had just gone gray, which would have been fine. But with the watercolor, I think it's a nice touch with it, and it gives the character it's a little more stable. So I put in the background, again, I'm going really dark because this is the Punisher. So I think it kind of fits a little atmosphere for Kermit, even though it's Kermit. Looks like he's got a little bit of an attitude. He's looking at us. And again, I think it's just a fun little thing that you should do. That's the kind of thing you get at a convention, comic convention, or like the Fan Expo is lots of entertainment, all kinds of things. So these are the kind of things people are looking for. They're not necessarily looking for just one thing. To mix the genres, I think, is always a good idea. So there's not much to say with something like this. I think that it's Kermit Frog's a great graphic character, and if you do him slightly interestingly, I think it comes off. And but for me, the subtlety of it is just coming on there and making sure that that I have the variety, and there's got a little texture on it, and that he pops. And I think this to me is like a perfect convention sketch. If I was walking around, I think that this is the kind of stuff that I would want. Anyway, so there's a lot of conventions coming up, and I intend to do this kind of work. And thanks for watching this episode. Hope to see you at one of the next conventions that I'm going to be drawing in. And make sure that you're liking and subscribing the channel. All right, see you soon.